Welcome to Mr. Yang's classroom. In this lesson, we're going to cover the quadratic formula. There will be 3 example questions. Now, the quadratic formula is a beautiful formula that was derived by mathematicians a long time ago to make yours and my life easier. To use the quadratic formula, it must be in the format ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. If this is not equal to 0, this will not work. So make sure you have your terms lined up correctly. So once we get our a term, as well as our b term, as well as our c term, we can plug it into this formula here. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. This is all over 2a. Okay? And in this equation, a cannot equal to 0, because if a was equal to 0, 2 times 0 would equal 0. And you cannot divide a term by a 0 term. Okay? Now let's work on our first example question. Is our trinomial equation x squared plus 6x plus 1 equal to 0 in standard form? Let's see. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Is it in that format? Yes, it is. So let's start labeling our ABCs now. We know that our a is our first term here, and that there's a 1 in front of that x squared. Our b is our second term here, and it's going to be positive 6. Always watch the sign. C is going to be our plus 1. Okay? Now let's plug it into our equation. X is equal to negative b, which is negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 6 squared, minus 4 times 1, which is our a term, and then our c, which is also 1. This is all over 2a, and a is equal to 1. Okay. Going forward, we have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, what is 6 squared? 6 times 6 is 36. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. So that whole term becomes negative 4. The whole denominator term becomes 2 times 1, which is 2. Simplifying further, we have x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, what is 36 minus 4? It should be 32. So the square root of 32 all over 2. Are we done here? We have 2 answers. We have negative 6 plus the square root of 32 over 2, as well as negative 6 minus the square root of 32 over 2. But let's see if we can simplify this term, the square root of 32, one more time. So when we take a look at the square root of 32, is there any number that is a perfect square within that square root of 32? Is the square root of 2 times the square root of 16? Is that equal to the square root of 32? Yes, it is. And is the square root of 16 a perfect square? I believe so. The square root of 16 is actually 4. So can we actually rewrite this as 4 square root 2? Yes, we can. So let's rewrite this as negative 6 plus or minus the square root should be 4 square root of 2 all over 2. From the top term, is there any greatest common factor that we can factor out? I believe 2 goes into both negative 6 as well as 4. So let's factor out 2. So this becomes 2 times negative 3 plus or minus 2 root 2 all over 2. Now 2 and 2 can cancel out, leaving us with negative 3 plus or minus 2 root 2. Negative 3 plus or minus 2 root 2. So we can leave our answer like this, or we can choose to rewrite it into both forms. Negative 3 plus 2 root 2, as well as negative 3 minus 2 root 2. Here's our second example problem. We have 4b squared plus 8b plus 7 is equal to 4. Is that in standard form? No, because this 4 has to actually be 0 on the right side. So what can we do to this equation? 4b squared plus 8b plus 7 is equal to 4 to make it into standard form. We can subtract 4 on both sides, of course. That leaves us with 4b squared plus 8b, and 7 minus 4 is positive 3, is equal to 4 minus 4 is 0. Now, is this equation in standard form? Yes, it is. So now we can label our A, B, and our C. So our A is going to equal 4. Our B is going to equal positive 8. And our C is going to equal 3. So now let's plug these numbers into our quadratic formula. So x is equal to negative b, which is negative 8, plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4a, which is 4, and our c, which is 3. This is all over 2a, and our a is 4. Now that we have this, we can simplify further. X is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared is actually 64 minus negative 4 times 4 times 3. Now if you can't do that in your head, you could always go into the calculator. 4 times 4 times 3. That equals 48. And it should be negative 48 because there is a negative 4 here. So we have minus 48. All over 2 times 4 is 8. Simplifying further, we have x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 48 should be 16, I believe. This is all divided by 8. Now, can we reduce the square root of 16? I believe so. It's already a perfect square. The square root of 16 is 4, so we can rewrite this as x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus 4 all over 8. I believe we could simplify this further, so let's finish it off. Negative 8 plus 4, x is equal to negative 8 plus 4 all over 8, as well as negative 8 minus 4 all over 8. What is negative 8 plus 4? This should actually be negative 4, right? And what is negative 8 minus 4? That's right, it should be negative 12. So negative 4 over 8 is actually negative 1 over 2, right? Because we can put 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 8 twice. And now negative 12 over 8 is actually negative 3 over 2, because 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So there's two answers here. X is equal to negative 1/2, as well as x is equal to negative 3 over 2. Now here's our final example problem. Is this equation, this trinomial, is it in standard form? I believe it is because it's equal to 0 and it has every single term. So let's label our terms. Our a is going to be negative 6, our b should be negative 5, and our c should be positive 9. Let's plug that into our equation. X is equal to negative b, and it should be negative 5, plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times negative 6 times c, which is 9. This is all over 2a, which is 2 times negative 6. Let's rewrite this equation. Negative 5 gives us a positive 5. Plus or minus the square root of, what is negative 5 squared? Well, negative 5 times negative 5 should be positive 25. And then negative 4 times negative 6 times 9. We know that's going to be a positive number because there's two negatives. So we'll go 4 times 6 times 9. That should equal 216. So it's going to be plus 216. This is all over 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Simplifying further, x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root. What is 25 plus 216? So 216 plus 25 should equal 241. So within the square root, we have 241 all over negative 12. Okay, let's see if 241 is able to be reduced. Trying to fit a 3, trying to fit a 4, 2 doesn't go in, 5 doesn't, 6 doesn't. We can assume that this is a radical that may or may not be able to be reduced. Therefore, let's write our answer out into two different ways. X is equal to 5 plus the square root of 241 all over negative 12, as well as 5 minus the square root of 241 all over negative 12. So these are your two answers.